The conference room sparkled with ambient lighting and the soft clink of champagne glasses. I stood near the refreshment table, adjusting my tie for the third time, watching my wife Zoya work the room with effortless grace. She wore that emerald dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one that made her eyes shine like polished jade. "You look nervous," said Tom from accounting, appearing beside me with a knowing smile. "First time at one of these corporate galas," I admitted. "Zoya's been climbing fast. I'm just the husband trying not to embarrass her." Tom chuckled. "You're doing fine. She talks about you all the time, you know. The way you supported her MBA, encouraged her to take risks." I felt a warm flush of pride. 15 years of marriage, and Zoya still felt like a miracle to me. We'd built our life brick by brick, from a studio apartment to our modest house in the suburbs, through my mother's illness and her father's passing. She was my partner in everything. "Excuse me," Tom said suddenly, his expression shifting. "I should." But I wasn't listening. My eyes had found Zoya across the room, and everything else faded into background noise. She stood near the entrance, animated and laughing, speaking with a tall man in an expensive suit. Even from this distance, I recognized him from the photos on her desk, Damien Cross, the regional director. The man whose mentorship had transformed her career over the past 8 months. I'd heard his name 1,000 times. "Damien thinks I should lead the merger project. Damien says I have real executive potential. Damien wants me to present at the national conference." I'd been grateful. Truly grateful that someone recognized what I'd always known, that my wife was extraordinary. I started walking toward them, weaving through clusters of colleagues, ready to finally meet the man who'd championed her rise. As I approached, Zoya's laughter rang out, bright and carefree in a way I hadn't heard in months. "And that's when the entire presentation crashed," she was saying, her hand briefly touching Damien's forearm. "But you stayed calm, and we improvised brilliantly." "We make a good team," Damien said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. I cleared my throat softly. "Excuse me." Zoya turned, and something flickered across her face. Surprise? Anxiety? It vanished so quickly I couldn't be sure. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, her smile a beat too late. "This is Damien Cross," I finished, extending my hand. "I've heard so much about you. Thank you for everything you've done for Zoya's career. I'm her husband." Damien's eyes swept over me with the same attention one might give to wallpaper. His hand remained at his side. "And you are," he said, his tone polite but utterly disinterested. The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Around us, conversations continued, glasses clinked, but in our small triangle, everything had gone silent. I'm Zoya's husband," I repeated, confused. Didn't you hear?" "Damien." A voice called from across the room. "We need you for the presentation." "Excuse me," he said smoothly, not looking at either of us. He walked away with the confidence of a man who'd already forgotten we existed. I turned to Zoya, ready to laugh off the awkward moment, ready to joke about corporate aloofness. But what I saw stopped the words in my throat. My wife's face had gone pale, her champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. Her eyes followed Damien's retreating figure with something that looked like panic, or perhaps heartbreak. "Zoya," I said softly. "What was that?" "Nothing." The word came too fast. "He's just distracted. The presentation. You know how these events are." But I didn't know. Because in 15 years of marriage, I'd learned to read every micro-expression on her face, every shift in her voice. And right now, every instinct I had was screaming that something was desperately wrong. "Let's get some air," I suggested, reaching for her arm. She pulled away, just slightly, just enough. "I need to stay," she said. "Network. It's important for my career." The word career landed like a stone between us. Since when did she pull away from my touch? Since when did networking matter more than the fact that her husband had just been humiliated in front of her boss? I watched her disappear into the crowd, leaving me standing alone near the refreshment table with a sick feeling growing in my stomach. Tom reappeared, not meeting my eyes. "Listen, man," he said quietly. "Maybe we should grab coffee sometime. Away from here." "Why?" I asked, but I already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. His uncomfortable silence told me everything. The drive home was suffocating. Zoya stared out the passenger window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. I tried twice to start a conversation, but each attempt died in the thick silence between us. "That was strange tonight," I finally said, keeping my voice neutral. "Your boss acting like we'd never met." "He meets hundreds of people," Zoya replied without turning. "He probably just didn't register who you were." I introduced myself as your husband, Zoya. Twice. "Can we not do this right now?" Her voice carried an edge I'd rarely heard before. "I'm exhausted." We'd been married long enough that I knew when to push and when to retreat. This felt like a moment that required careful handling, not confrontation. So I drove in silence, but my mind raced with fragments that suddenly seemed significant. The late nights at the office. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The way she'd started sleeping on her side of the bed, creating an invisible wall between us. How she'd changed her phone password 2 months ago, something she'd never done before. I'd explained it all away. She was building her career. The promotion to senior management demanded sacrifices. I was being supportive, understanding. That's what good husbands did. But tonight, seeing the look on her face when Damien dismissed us, that hadn't been professional embarrassment. That had been personal devastation. At home, Zoya went straight to the bedroom. I sat in the living room, staring at wedding photos on the mantel. The woman in those pictures, laughing in her white dress, seemed like a stranger now. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom: "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Please." I fell asleep on the couch, unwilling to lie beside someone who suddenly felt miles away. The morning brought no clarity. Zoya had already left for work when I woke, unusual, since she normally made us coffee together on Saturday mornings. Another small ritual lost to whatever was happening between us. I met Tom at a cafe across town, somewhere no one from Zoya's company would see us. "I don't want to be the one to tell you this," Tom started, stirring his coffee obsessively. "But someone should. Everyone at the office knows except you, and that's not fair." My hands tightened around my cup. "Knows what?" "Zoya and Damien. They've been involved for months now. Since last spring, around the time she joined his division." The words should have destroyed me. Instead, I felt strangely numb, as if Tom were describing someone else's life. "You're sure?" "There are rumors about the Cincinnati trip in June. They shared a hotel suite. And the late nights aren't always at the office. Someone saw them at that boutique hotel downtown, the one with the private entrances." I wanted to defend her. To say Tom was wrong, that there was some explanation. But all I could think about was Zoya's face last night, the look of a woman whose secret had almost been exposed. Why didn't anyone tell me before? Tom looked miserable. Office politics. Damien's powerful, and Zoya's his favorite. People are afraid. But after last night, after the way he treated you. He shook his head. That was cruel. Even for him. What do you mean, even for him? Damien has a reputation. He finds promising women, mentors them, gets involved, then moves on when the next opportunity comes along. There were 2 others before Zoya. One transferred to another division. The other quit entirely. The coffee turned sour in my stomach. My gentle, kind Zoya, how had she become entangled with someone like this? Or had I never really known her at all? "There's something else," Tom said reluctantly. "HR has been quietly investigating. Apparently, someone filed an anonymous complaint about preferential treatment. Zoya's rapid promotions, the projects she's been assigned, people are questioning whether she earned them or if." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I thanked Tom and drove aimlessly for hours, trying to process the wreckage of my marriage. By the time I returned home that evening, I'd made a decision. I would confront Zoya. Calmly. Directly. I would give her a chance to explain, to tell me her side. 15 years deserved that much. But when I walked through the door, Zoya was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. Her face was blotchy from crying, her hands trembling. "They know," she whispered. "HR called me in today. They showed me security footage from the office, emails, everything. They're starting an investigation." He told them it was all me, that I pursued him, that he tried to discourage it. He's throwing me under the bus to save himself. She looked up at me, and in her eyes, I saw not remorse but desperation, the panic of someone watching their carefully constructed world collapse. "I need your help," she said. "Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to stand by me through this. To show HR that I'm stable, that I have family support. It might help my case." The audacity of it stole my breath. She wasn't confessing out of guilt or asking for forgiveness. She was asking me to be a prop in her damage control. "How long?" I asked quietly. She looked away. "Does it matter?" "Yes. It matters to me." 7 months. 7 months. Nearly a third of our last year together had been a lie. "Do you love him?" Her silence was answer enough. I sat down across from her, and despite everything, the betrayal, the humiliation, the shattered trust, what I felt most acutely was grief. Grief for the woman I'd loved, who had somehow lost herself in the pursuit of validation she already had at home. "I'll help you," I said finally. Hope sparked in her eyes. "But understand something, Zoya. I'm doing this because I still love who you used to be. Because the woman I married wouldn't want to face this alone. But when this is over, when HR closes their investigation, I'm done. I'll help you through the shame, through the professional consequences. And then I'm filing for divorce." Her face crumpled, but she nodded. What else could she do? I'd promised to stand by her through the fire. But I wouldn't, stay in the ashes. Monday morning brought the official summons. The email from HR arrived with the cold formality of corporate bureaucracy, required attendance for interview regarding workplace conduct investigation. 9 a.m., Conference Room C, failure to appear may result in immediate termination. Zoya sat at our kitchen table, still in her pajamas at 8:30, staring at her phone like it might spontaneously combust. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't walk in there and face them." I poured her coffee, black, the way she'd always taken it, and set it in front of her with steady hands. 2 days had passed since her confession, 2 days of sleeping in separate rooms and navigating around each other like polite strangers. But I'd made a promise. "You can do this," I said. "Get dressed. Go in with your head up. Answer their questions honestly. What if they fire me? What if everyone knows?" "Everyone already knows, Zoya." She flinched, but I wasn't trying to be cruel. It was simply the truth. Tom had confirmed it over text. The rumors had spread like wildfire after the gala. Zoya and Damien's relationship was now the worst-kept secret in the company. She dressed mechanically, a conservative navy suit, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back severely. She looked like someone preparing for battle. "Do you want me to drive you?" I offered. She shook her head. "I need to do this myself." After she left, I did something I'd never done in 15 years. I called in sick to my own job and spent the day researching corporate HR investigations, employment lawyers, and emotional affair recovery forums. The internet was full of stories like ours, each one a small tragedy of ordinary people making catastrophic choices. Zoya returned home at 3 in the afternoon, her professional armor crumpled. She collapsed onto the couch, not crying but hollow-eyed with exhaustion. "Tell me," I said, sitting across from her, not beside her. That intimacy felt impossible now. "They have everything." Her voice was flat, mechanical. Security footage of us leaving together after hours. Hotel receipts charged to the company card, supposedly for business dinners. Email exchanges that are compromising. Text messages recovered from the company phones. What did you tell them? The truth. That we'd been involved. That it started professionally but became personal. That I thought. She laughed bitterly. That I thought he cared about me. That it was real. And what did he tell them? Her jaw tightened. He claims I was obsessed with him. That I misinterpreted his mentorship as romantic interest. That he tried multiple times to establish professional boundaries, but I became increasingly aggressive and inappropriate. He's painted himself as the victim of a subordinate's unwanted advances. The calculated cruelty of it was breathtaking. Damien had used my wife and was now destroying her reputation to protect his own career. Do they believe him? I don't know. The HR director, Miranda, seemed skeptical of his version. She kept asking about the promotions, the project assignments, whether he'd ever explicitly promised career advancement in exchange for. Zoya couldn't finish the sentence. Had he? Not in so many words. But the implication was always there. Play along, and your career benefits. Cause problems, and you'll be sidelined. I felt my hands curl into fists. I'd always considered myself a peaceful man, but right now, I wanted to confront Damien Cross myself, to make him acknowledge what he'd done to my wife, not just to our marriage, but to her sense of self-worth. What happens now? They're reviewing all the evidence. They'll interview other employees, check his history with previous mentees. Miranda said a decision would be made within 2 weeks. Zoya finally looked at me, really looked at me. I'm so sorry. I know you've heard that already, but I don't even recognize the person I became. Tell me why, I said. It was the question that had haunted me for 3 days. Help me understand how we got here. She was quiet for a long time, fingers twisting together in her lap. Do you remember when I didn't get the promotion 3 years ago? When they gave it to Richard instead? I nodded. She'd been devastated for months. Something broke in me that day. I'd worked so hard, done everything right, and it wasn't enough. Then Damien transferred to our division last year, and he saw something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself. He made me feel extraordinary, important. Like I wasn't just your wife or someone's employee, but someone with real power and potential. You were always extraordinary, I said quietly. I told you that every day. I know. But when you say it, it's because you love me. When Damien said it, it felt like objective truth. Like the world was finally recognizing what I deserved. She wiped her eyes. I know how narcissistic that sounds. How stupid. He love-bombed me, made me dependent on his validation, and I fell for it completely. When did it become physical? The Cincinnati trip. We'd been flirting for weeks, texting late at night. He arranged separate hotel rooms initially, but after the client dinner, we went to the hotel bar, and... She shook her head. I knew it was wrong. I thought about you, about our marriage. But in that moment, I wanted to be the woman he saw, confident, powerful, desirable, more than I wanted to be faithful. The honesty was like glass in my chest, sharp and cutting. But I'd asked for truth, and she was giving it to me. Did you ever plan to leave me? No. Never. I compartmentalized. You were my safe harbor, my real life. Damien was this separate fantasy where I got to be someone different. I thought I could have both. She laughed bitterly. How delusional is that? Very, I said. But despite everything, I understood the psychology of it. People make terrible choices when they're chasing validation they think they lack. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Miranda Chen from HR. Your wife gave me your contact information. Would you be willing to come in tomorrow for a witness interview? Your perspective could be valuable to our investigation. I showed Zoya the message. Her face went white. You don't have to, she said quickly. I can tell them you're not comfortable. I'll do it, I interrupted. If it helps establish the truth, I'll do it. Even though it might make things worse for me. I met her eyes. I promised I'd help you through this, Zoya. I didn't promise to lie for you. If they ask me questions, I'll answer honestly. That's the only way through this, with truth, even when it's ugly. She nodded slowly, understanding that this was the boundary of my support. I would stand beside her through the consequences, but I wouldn't compromise my own integrity to shield her from them. That night, as I lay alone in the guest room, I thought about the conversation with Miranda Chen tomorrow. What would I say? That I'd been oblivious? That I'd trusted blindly while my marriage deteriorated around me? Or would I tell them about the woman I'd married, kind, ambitious, insecure beneath her confidence, and how a predatory man had exploited those insecurities for his own gratification? Both were true. Both mattered. And tomorrow, the investigation would force all of us to confront exactly who we'd become. Miranda Chen's office was smaller than I'd expected, with cream walls covered in HR certifications and a single window overlooking the parking lot. She gestured to a chair across from her desk, formal but not unkind. "Thank you for coming," she said, settling into her seat with a thick file folder. "I know this is difficult. For the record, this interview is voluntary, and you're free to leave at any time. Everything discussed will be kept confidential within the scope of the investigation." I nodded, my throat dry despite the water bottle she'd offered. "Let me be direct," Miranda continued. "We're investigating a complaint of workplace misconduct involving your wife and her supervisor, Damien Cross. What I need from you is context, observations about behavioral changes, timeline inconsistencies, anything that might help us understand the full scope of what occurred." "Before we start," I said carefully, "I need to know something. Is Zoya going to lose her job over this?" Miranda's expression remained neutral. "That depends on what our investigation reveals. Company policy prohibits relationships between supervisors and their direct reports specifically because of power imbalance concerns. However, we're also investigating whether there were elements of coercion, quid pro quo promises, or abuse of authority that would shift responsibility." She pulled out a document. "According to Damien's statement, your wife initiated and pursued the relationship despite his attempts to maintain professional boundaries. According to your wife's statement, Damien cultivated the relationship through a pattern of mentorship that became increasingly personal, with implicit career promises. These are contradictory narratives, and we need to establish which version aligns with the evidence. What evidence do you have besides their statements?" "Security footage showing them leaving together after hours on 17 occasions. Hotel records showing shared accommodations on 4 business trips. Email and text exchanges that escalate from professional to intimate over a 6-month period. Testimony from 3 colleagues who witnessed inappropriately familiar behavior." She paused. "We also have Damien's employment history, which shows a pattern we're examining carefully." "Other women," I said. Miranda didn't confirm or deny. "Your wife told us she believed the relationship was consensual and genuine, that she thought Damien had real feelings for her. Do you have any observations that would support or contradict that belief?" I thought about the past 7 months, filtering memories through this new, terrible lens. "About 8 months ago, Zoya started changing," I began. "Small things at first. She bought new clothes, more expensive and professional than her usual style. She started going to the gym obsessively, talking about wanting to look the part for her career advancement. She became secretive about her phone, which had never been an issue before." Miranda made notes. "Did she mention Damien by name during this period?" "Constantly. Damien thinks I should lead this project. Damien says I have executive potential. Damien wants me to present at the national conference." At first, I was happy someone was recognizing her talents. I encouraged her to seize the opportunities. "When did your perception change?" Looking back, probably around June. She took a trip to Cincinnati for a conference. She was gone 4 days, barely called home. When she returned, she seemed different, distracted, guilty, maybe, though I didn't recognize it then. She started working later, coming home sometimes after midnight. "Did you confront her?" I asked if everything was okay. She said she was stressed about the merger project, that Damien was depending on her. I believed her because I trusted her. I felt my voice crack slightly. 15 years of marriage, and I never doubted her fidelity. Not once. Miranda's expression softened. When did you first suspect something was wrong? The corporate gala. Zoya introduced me to Damien, and he looked at me like I was invisible. He said, "And you are?" when I told him I was her husband. Then he walked away without acknowledging me at all. The look on Zoya's face. I paused, remembering. She was devastated. Not embarrassed, devastated. Like someone she loved had just publicly rejected her. What happened after the gala? She withdrew completely. Wouldn't talk about it. The next day, a colleague confirmed the rumors, that they'd been having an affair for months, that everyone at the office knew except me. When I confronted Zoya, she broke down and confessed everything. Miranda set down her pen. In your observations, did your wife seem to believe this was a genuine relationship? Or did she seem aware she was being manipulated? This was the crucial question. The one that would shape how the investigation viewed Zoya's culpability. Honestly, I think she was manipulated, but I also think she let herself be manipulated because it gave her something she wanted, professional validation she'd been craving for years. She told me Damien made her feel extraordinary, that his attention felt like objective recognition of her worth rather than just her husband's bias. I met Miranda's eyes. Does that excuse what she did? No. She made choices, and they destroyed our marriage. But from what I've observed, Damien knew exactly what he was doing. He identified her insecurities and exploited them. Miranda nodded slowly. One final question. Why are you here, helping with an investigation that could potentially support your wife's case? Most betrayed spouses would want nothing to do with this. Because I still love who she was before all this, I said simply. And because what Damien did was predatory. If he's done this before, he'll do it again unless someone stops him. If my testimony helps establish that pattern, then maybe something good can come from this disaster. Miranda closed her folder. Thank you for your honesty. This has been very helpful. As I stood to leave, she added, for what it's worth, I'm sorry you're going through this. You seem like a good man who didn't deserve any of this. Neither did my wife, I said. She made terrible choices, but she didn't deserve to be used like that. I met Zoya for lunch at a quiet restaurant near our house. She looked like she hadn't slept, dark circles prominent despite her makeup. How did it go? She asked, voice tentative. I told them the truth. All of it. She nodded, not asking for details. Miranda called me after your interview. She said they're expanding the investigation to include 2 of Damien's previous reports. Women who transferred divisions or left the company under unclear circumstances. They're looking for pattern evidence of predatory behavior. That's good, isn't it? Maybe. But it doesn't change what I did. Even if Damien targeted me deliberately, I still chose to respond to it. I still betrayed you and our marriage. She pushed food around her plate. The worst part is, I can't even claim I was completely deceived. There were moments I knew exactly what I was doing, choosing the affair over you, over us, and I did it anyway. Why? Because it made me feel special in a way I'd forgotten how to feel. Like I was the star of my own life instead of just existing in the background of everyone else's expectations. She finally looked at me. I know how selfish that sounds. It's honest, at least. We sat in silence for a moment. Around us, other couples laughed and talked, living the ordinary life we'd once had. Miranda said a decision should come by Friday, Zoya continued. Either way, I think I'm going to resign. I can't stay at that company, not with everyone knowing. Not with him still working there. What will you do? Start over, I guess. Look for something new. See a therapist. Figure out why I sabotaged the best thing in my life. She reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know I understand what I threw away. You were always enough. I was just too broken to see it. I didn't take her hand, but I didn't pull away either. I meant what I said, Zoya. I'll stand by you until this is resolved. After that, I'm done. Not because I don't love you, Some part of me probably always will. But because I can't be married to someone I don't trust. I know, she whispered. I know. We finished lunch in silence, two people who'd once built a life together, now carefully managing its dignified dismantling. Friday would bring answers. But the real question, whether either of us could rebuild from the rubble, would take much longer to resolve. Friday arrived with the weight of finality. Zoya left early for her meeting with HR, dressed in the same navy suit she'd worn for her first interview. I watched her drive away from our living room window, coffee growing cold in my hands. By noon, my phone rang. It's done, Zoya said, her voice strangely calm. They terminated Damien. Effective immediately. Security escorted him out this morning. I sat down slowly. And you? Official reprimand for violation of workplace conduct policy. No termination, but I'm being transferred to a different division under new management. They're characterizing me as someone who exercised poor judgment but was also subjected to manipulation by a superior who abused his position. She paused. Miranda said your testimony was crucial, and they found two other women with similar stories. The pattern was undeniable. How do you feel? Empty, relieved, ashamed, all of it at once. I heard traffic noise through the phone. I'm not coming home right away. I need to drive, to think. Is that okay? Of course. She hung up, and I sat in the silence of our house, a house that would soon belong to only one of us. 3 hours later, Zoya returned. She looked exhausted but somehow lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. I stopped by the office to clean out my desk, she said, setting down a cardboard box. Turned in my badge for the old division. Fresh start Monday with new people who hopefully won't know the full story. That's good. A clean break. She nodded, then pulled an envelope from her purse. I picked these up on the way home. Divorce papers. Already filled out with a fair division of assets. The house goes to you. I'll take the savings for a deposit on an apartment. No alimony request. I just want this to be as painless as possible. I took the envelope, feeling its weight. 15 years of marriage reduced to legal documents. There's something else, Zoya continued, her voice shakier now. I want you to know why I'm not fighting this, why I'm not begging you to reconsider. It's because you deserve better than someone who has to rebuild herself from scratch. You deserve a partner who knows her own worth without needing external validation. And right now, I'm not that person. You could be again, I said softly. With time and work. Maybe. But not with you. Not in this marriage that I poisoned. She wiped her eyes. The kindest thing I can do for you now is let you go cleanly. No drama, no drawn-out battles, just release. You stood by me when you had every right to abandon me. That kind of integrity deserves freedom, not the burden of my recovery. I looked at the woman I'd married, seeing both who she'd been and who she might become, someone wiser, humbler, scarred but perhaps stronger for it. I'm going to sign these, I said, gesturing to the papers. But I want you to know something first. What you did nearly destroyed me. The betrayal, the lies, the way you chose someone else over what we'd built, it broke something fundamental in me. But watching you face the consequences with honesty, watching you take responsibility without making excuses, that's been important. You hurt me deeply, but you're not irredeemable. She nodded, tears flowing freely now. Get help, Zoya. Real help. Figure out why you needed that validation so badly that you'd risk everything. Build a life you can be proud of, even if I'm not part of it. And maybe someday, you'll find someone you don't need to destroy yourself to impress. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. For standing by me when I didn't deserve it. For being kinder to me than I was to our marriage. 2 months later, I signed the final divorce decree at my lawyer's office. The house felt cavernous and quiet, but I'd started filling it with new routines. Cooking classes on Thursdays, hiking groups on weekends, therapy sessions every Tuesday afternoon. I ran into Tom at a coffee shop one Saturday morning. He hugged me tightly. How are you holding up? Better than I expected, I said honestly. Some days are harder than others, but I'm rebuilding. Have you talked to her? Once, about forwarding mail. She's in therapy, working with a new company on the other side of the city. Starting fresh. I stirred my coffee. I heard Damien's having trouble finding work. Word got around about the investigation. Turns out, reputation matters. Tom nodded. Karma has its own timeline. We talked for a while about ordinary things, work projects, football games, his daughter's college applications. Normal life, slowly knitting itself back together. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a letter. Zoya's handwriting on the envelope, familiar as my own. I debated not opening it. We'd agreed on a clean break, minimal contact. But curiosity won. Dear, name. I'm writing because my therapist suggested it might help both of us to have closure on my terms rather than just legal ones. I'm doing okay. The therapy is hard, confronting how much of my self-worth I'd tied to external achievement, understanding the patterns that made me vulnerable to manipulation. I'm learning to sit with being ordinary, with being enough without performance or validation. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping survivors of domestic abuse navigate workplace resources. It's humbling and healing to channel what I learned from my own mistakes into helping others. I want you to know that I think about you often. Not with longing to get back together, we both know that ship sailed, but with deep gratitude. You showed me what unconditional love looks like, even in its ending. You could have destroyed me publicly, could have used the divorce to punish me. Instead, you helped me through the worst period of my life and then let me go with dignity. That gift, of being loved enough to be released, is something I'll carry forever. I hope you're finding happiness. I hope you're surrounded by people who appreciate your kindness, your integrity, your capacity for grace even in devastation. Thank you for 15 years of partnership, and for the final act of love that was letting me go. With gratitude and respect. Zoya. I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in a box with our wedding photos and other memories I wasn't ready to discard but couldn't display. She was right. Letting her go had been an act of love, not romantic love, but something deeper, the love that wants the best for someone even when they've hurt you beyond repair. A year after the divorce, I went on my first real date. Her name was Elena, she worked as a librarian, and she made me laugh in a way I'd forgotten was possible. We took things slowly, both carrying scars from previous relationships. What happened with your marriage? She asked over dinner one night, 6 weeks into our careful courtship. She made choices that broke our trust, I said simply. And I made the choice to help her through the consequences and then walk away. Some relationships can survive betrayal. Ours couldn't. Elena reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're a rare person. Most people lead with bitterness after something like that. I was bitter for a while, I admitted. But staying bitter would have meant she continued to hurt me even after it ended. I chose my own peace instead. That night, driving home, I realized I'd stopped thinking of myself as Zoya's ex-husband. I was just myself, someone who'd loved deeply, been broken badly, and was learning to trust again. The story could have ended in pure destruction. Instead, it ended in hard-won wisdom, painful growth, and the slow rebuilding of 2 separate lives. Zoya had taught me about betrayal and the fragility of trust. But I taught myself something more important, that dignity in endings matters as much as joy in beginnings, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. The corporate event where Damien had asked, "And you are?" That moment of humiliation had accidentally revealed the truth that saved me from years of continued deception. Sometimes exposure is a gift, even when it arrives wrapped in pain. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stand beside someone through their reckoning, then walk away with your head held high, ready for whatever comes next.